You're down 29 points in the NBA Finals.
"29 points in an NBA Finals game is a mathematical death sentence. It is the kind of deficit where analysts stop talking about the current game and start previewing the next one. Coming into Game 4, the New York Knicks had every reason to feel invincible. They held a 3-0 series lead, sweeping Philadelphia and Cleveland with a dominant postseason run. New York has waited 53 years to see a championship team. That 1973 roster has hung over the franchise as an unreachable finish line. Game 4 became a collision course. You had a city eager to end decades of waiting, running headfirst into a talented San Antonio Spurs roster fighting to extend their season. The Spurs opened the game shooting with ruthless efficiency. By the end of the first 12 minutes, they had poured in 41 points, leaving the Knicks roster looking completely and utterly rattled. This chart shows the scoring trajectories. San Antonio's offense surges upward to 76 points, while New York stalls at 49. Zooming out to historical NBA Finals data, that 29-point gap sits entirely isolated. Teams down by that margin simply do not win. The Knicks had completely lost their defensive structure. To make the final score respectable, they needed an immediate, drastic change in how they guarded the ball. In the third quarter, New York deployed aggressive, full-court ball pressure. They crowded the inbound passes and harassed De'Aaron Fox, forcing San Antonio out of their carefully timed offensive sets. The primary problem was Victor Wembanyama. The Knicks started sending hard double teams on the catch, making him work through heavy physical contact and ultimately dragging his field goal percentage down to 36% for the night. That physical pressure yielded tangible results. The Knicks forced live ball turnovers, racking up 6 steals and converting those San Antonio mistakes directly into 11 fast break points. The second unit also locked down the transition game. They crashed the offensive glass and dove for loose balls, erasing the easy baskets the Spurs relied on in the first half. Josh Hart anchored that effort off the bench. He grabbed 8 rebounds and handed out 6 assists, providing the high-energy plays that got the home crowd re-engaged. You cannot erase a massive deficit by simply trading baskets. Consecutive defensive stops allowed the Knicks to control the pace and starve the Spurs of momentum. With the defense finally generating stops, the offense found its rhythm. OG Anunoby became the primary scoring threat. He dropped 33 points and hit 7 three-pointers, shooting nearly 78% from beyond the arc. Because of that outside shooting, the deficit began to crack. 29 became 17 by the end of the third quarter, and slowly dwindled into single digits as the fourth quarter progressed. Then, Jalen Brunson took over the closing minutes. He scored 36 points on the night, consistently breaking down multiple defenders in isolation to get to the rim or hit pull-up jumpers. This comparison chart visualizes exactly how the game flipped. After a disastrous opening, the Knicks outscored the Spurs 32-16 in the final 12 minutes to close the gap completely. Brunson found those isolation driving lanes specifically because the Spurs were terrified of leaving Anunoby open on the perimeter. The offensive spacing and defensive stops finally aligned. When the final buzzer sounded, the scoreboard read New York 107, San Antonio 106. The 29-point hole was gone. In the history of the NBA Finals, a 29-point reversal is an extreme anomaly. Erasing a deficit of that size in under 24 minutes of play marks a psychological breakthrough for a franchise that has spent decades defined by its near misses. The series moves back to San Antonio for Game 5. The Spurs will adjust, but they are now facing an opponent that clearly believes it can survive any situation. For a city that has lived through every rebuild and false start since 1973, this recovery moves the team past the identity of a tortured franchise. New York has stopped chasing history and is now effectively dictating the terms of its own championship story.
If you want to see more content like this, make sure to follow for more.